Fox. Fox is bleeping Sister Bertrill. What does Fox have against the flying nun? I don't understand. Did you see that last night? I saw that last night. I was actually on an airplane. Sitting there going, I think there's something wrong with my headset. No, I got home, I DVR'd it, I went back. No, they cut off Sally Field's little anti-war statement at the Emmy broadcast because Fox, big bad Fox, Rupert Murdoch, is afraid of Sister Bertrill, the flying nun. Sister Bertrill is an evildoer. I mean, I hope they're going to cut away from all actors when they start talking about the war. Then we would hear nothing but this when Fred Thompson spoke. Think they'll do that for him? No, because they like Law and Order. They don't like the Flying Nun. I love the Flying Nun. 90 pounds, and the little habit had an aerodynamic quality. Does anybody remember that? And she go, woo, 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 doing all good deeds. And like, I don't know where she was, like Santo Domingo or something like that. All of a sudden, they bleeped this woman. Now, Sally Field was talking about mothers. And the mothers cut her off. I was like, wow, that's right. So Fox now says that they cut off Sally Field because she used an obscenity. But if you ever watched those Fox shows, they had obscenity rules. Half of those shows would be canceled. So I think she did a nice thing. I really do. Warning us that we should elect a mom next time around and see what that does for us. It'd be interesting, because if it did do anything for us, then Sally Field would be right and Fox would be wrong. But if it didn't do anything for us, then Fox would be still wrong and Sally Field would be still a mother, and that's a good outcome. I can't believe they did that. I mean, and what happened to OJ? Something happened to him? I don't know. I think that's what the news is about today. Sally Field and OJ. And Blackwater. Blackwater is in the news again. You know what's really amazing? That the day that those contractors were hung, remember that horrible, horrible thing? That it was just the most amazingly sickening sight. And it was the first day that Air America launched. It was launch day. I was standing in front of the TV getting ready to go to work for the first time on Air America, and that news broke, and the contractors were hanging from the bridge, but they weren't just hanging from the bridge. They were battered, they were burnt, they were broken into pieces and hanging from the bridge. And the families of those contractors tried to sue Blackwater, and they actually had to go to court to win the right to sue Blackwater because nobody's really clear what the status of these mercenaries are. Nobody knows, under what law do they, is it American? Is it Iraqi? What's the law in Iraq for contract? The whole thing is just one of the most stymieing subjects ever. I know, because I talked about it a couple times, and I got sued by a contractor, and I can't tell you any more about it because it's still going on. But it's amazing to me that the Iraqis had to ban Blackwater from their country. Apparently, the Iraqi government has revoked the license of Blackwater Security to operate in Iraq. Did you know that there was a license for... I didn't even know there was a licensing agency. Look, the government is forming. The government is forming. Apparently, Blackwater contracts are blamed in a gun battle in Iraq that left, it depends on what you read, 8 or 9 civilians dead. So I'm just lost. I mean, do you remember that Blackwater came into New Orleans for Katrina? They were there and they were providing security after Hurricane Katrina for $240,000 a day. If you're a security guard, now you know how our troops feel. You're sitting there with $5 a day, and then if you pass the gun test, you get $7 a day or $7 an hour. It's just like our troops. What do they make? $1,200 a month, and then the guy next to him is a security contractor. He's making $12,000 a month. That's how our troops feel. So it's just amazing. But that's the Bush president for you. You can't get bottled water in New Orleans, but you can get armed mercenaries there pronto. It's believable, isn't it? You can't get electricity for the Iraqis, but you can get armed mercenaries there. By the way, they hate that word, mercenaries. But I don't know what other word to use. I really don't. When they were in New Orleans, there was Jeremy Scahill, I think is how you pronounce his name. I've been reading him in The Nation for a very long time, and he's been writing about Blackwater forever, and especially when they came to New Orleans, he wrote an unbelievable article that you would do yourself a really good favor to read called Blackwater Down, and he talked about how they got there from right after Katrina. They couldn't get ice there, they couldn't get anything there, but they could get Blackwater there, and of course, it was known for the private security work guarding L. Paul Bremer, the viceroy, in the CPA, in the Coalition Provisional Authority. days of Iraq. And so they had come to New Orleans with their SUVs, with their tinted windows, and Blackwater logos splashed on the back. And they were speeding around the French Quarter in unmarked cars with no license plates. And it's just an amazing story how the armed men shuffled in and out of buildings as a handful of stories of their past experiences in Iraq were being told. And one of the guys said, I worked the security detail of both Bremer and Negroponte, said one of the Blackwater guys, referring to the former head of the U.S. occupation, L. Paul Bremer, and former U.S. ambassador to Iraq, John Negroponte. Another complained while talking on his cell phone that he was only getting $350 a day per diem. Oh, plus his per diem. When they told me New Orleans, I said, what country is that in? He said. He wore his company ID around his neck in a case with the phrase Operation Iraqi Freedom printed on it. And Jeremy writes that in an hour-long conversation I had with 4 Blackwater men, they characterized their work in New Orleans as securing neighborhoods and confronting criminals. They all carried automatic assault weapons and had guns strapped to their legs. Their flak jackets were covered with pouches for extra ammunition. When asked what authority they were operating under, one guy said, we're on contract with the Department of Homeland Security. And then pointing to one of his comrades, he said, he was even deputized by the governor of the state of Louisiana. We can make arrests and use lethal force if we deem it necessary. The man then held up the gold Louisiana law enforcement badge he wore around his neck. Blackwater spokesperson Ann Duke also said the company has a letter from Louisiana officials authorizing its forces to carry loaded weapons. Quote, this vigilantism demonstrates the utter breakdown of the government, says Michael Ratner, president of the Center for Constitutional Rights. These private security forces have behaved brutally with impunity in Iraq. To have them now on the streets of New Orleans is frightening and possibly illegal. But it took the Iraqi government to actually ban them from someplace. So I don't know how that gets enforced. I haven't got the slightest clue how you go about enforcing any law in Iraq, let alone the banning of a security contractor. But apparently they said that, you know, and an updated article that came across just right before the show said that, let me quote it, because when you're talking about these people, you know, contractors, you got to quote somebody else all the time. They are often, this is the BBC News, they are often heavily armed, but critics say some are not properly trained and are not accountable except to their employers. The Interior Ministry's Director of Operations, Major General Abdul Karim Khalaf, said authorities would prosecute any foreign contractors found to have used excessive force. Quote, we've opened a criminal investigation against the group who committed the crime, end quote, he told the AFP news agency. All Blackwater personnel have been told to leave Iraq immediately, with the exception of the men involved in the incident on Sunday. They will have to remain in the country and stand trial. Now, can you imagine having to go on trial in Iraq? Because that worked out real well for Saddam Hussein, didn't it? Yeah. Because, you know, Saddam's problem was he didn't kill enough people. You understand that, right? Because Pol Pot, remember I told you Vietnam, remember when they were comparing Iraq to Vietnam, and Bush had spent 5 years, 6 years saying Iraq is not Vietnam, then all of a sudden he said, Iraq is Vietnam. Gotcha. And so I started thinking about, you know, oh, they killed, the second we withdrew from Vietnam, they said, oh, well, that's when chaos ensued and millions of people were killed. Well, it was Pol Pot in Cambodia, and he had killed 1.4 million Cambodians. But they placed him under house arrest, see. So Saddam's problem is he just didn't kill enough people. They tried him in a little playpen, executed, you know, like everybody that was involved in that trial before they even got to the execution of Saddam. And then when we executed Saddam, we sort of kind of blew it. Like heads were popping off and stuff. Remember that? Just wrong. I miss Phoenix already. They were always so happy to see me. 16 after.
The Randi Rhodes Show, inviting you to step into the light.
We're going to spend time in the shadows. We'll have to work toward the dark side, if you will.
This is Air America Radio.